On September 11th, 2025, Beth Ann Hart is an activist as Yara Shahidi activist in a Forbes interview on how she felt about her world right now. Yara answered honestly by saying she is terrified and would like a plan to fix it. I empathize in that no one should live in fear. In my opinion, this sounds like a plea for help. I want to help, but how? When Yara Shahidi was younger, she did an equality speech on October 19, 2018 at the Gleason Respect Awards. I argue this speech is the hypothesis to fix her world and to reduce her fear. In April 2024, I published my book on Amazon based on this hypothesis, showing that prevention will lead to equity and that equity will lead to equality. This hypothesis will fix the political, economic, and social problems in her world and our world. This nonprofit, non-edited channel is a letter to Yara Shahidi and teaching Yara's hypothesis to the public in order to better our world. In the end, Yara Shahidi will get the Nobel Peace Prize for her hypothesis. Dear Yara Shahidi, it's so weird every time I say that. Chapter 16, Prevention Psychology. Dr. King's dream is about equality for all. The racism experts have said racism is a factor for the us-them relationships, in which it stifles Dr. King's dream. Let me repeat that. The racism experts have said racism is a factor of the us-them relationships in which it stifles Dr. King's dream. I argue that Leimana Plus is the society that consists of an us mentality, and the them people relate to terrorists, domestic terrorists, child molesters, gangbangers, mass shooters, psychopaths, murderers, rapists, etc. In this portion of the paper, I continue the argument that these them people, if you will, can be part of the us society with prevention. What most of these them people have in common that has them turn to the dark side of humanity, so to speak, is child adversity. Child adversity can be parental abuse, neglect, poverty, bullying, family violence, etc. What this means is that our genes provide the basic blueprint for brain development, but human individual experiences can shape and alter the underlying circuitry of the brain. For example, traumatic early experiences have long-term effects on the brain structure and function. The children that are brought up in these environments in which they do not have appropriate intellectual stimulation nor appropriate bonding with parents will have neural pathways that do not develop in the brain well. Plus the hippocampus, an organ in the brain critical for cognitive function and especially short-term memory, will be underdeveloped and never reach normal size. This can be measured with an MRI or an FMRI. Besides cognitive abilities, other aspects of health are affected for these children, like they will be susceptible to depression and suicide thoughts, do drugs, and be susceptible to cardiovascular diseases and metabolic diseases. Even moderate impairment of bonding between the child and the parent can have an effect. The worst part is that this damage from child adversity can be passed down genetically, affecting different generations, because these social factors of these environments can have dramatic effects on the structure of the brain that can be passed down to their kids and grandkids. What this all means is that child adversity causes DNA changes that causes vulnerability to stress. This in turn alters brain development, and the outcome is an unhealthy stress response. In the end, child adversity produces adults with problems with cognitive, health, and social declines. Children need neurological stimulation for normal brain development, and if it is not there because of child adversity, then the child becomes underdeveloped and turns into an adult with the same problems probably for the rest of their life. A recurrence of the them people in the media is mass shooters. Most mass shooters come from child adversity. In a study of 37 mass shooters of lone offender attacks, most attackers follow a discriminable pattern of behavior for weeks or even months before the attack. It is called the pathway to violence. The people who engage in these attacks in the pathway to violence sequence always start off with a similar series of actions. For example, these are people who get tired of being the victim of their environment. They are desperate, vulnerable, and are looking for a way out, or at least a solution to their problem. When they pick up a gun, then they feel powerful and finally in control in their mind that they won't be a victim anymore with this gun at their fingertips. After this, they think and accept that violence is the answer to their desperate state in solving their problems. Once they have selected their particular weapon, then they will often practice shooting it. In almost all cases, the shooter will tell someone about wanting to shoot a school or a place. The study concludes that mass shootings are rare but scary. What does this mean? The study shows that mass shooters can be victims of child adversity. This victimhood thinking of the person can be dealt with through prevention before they get to that desperation point of using violence as their way out or their solution to their problems. This is why psychology intervention is so needed for the individual education plan, or IEP, from 2 years old to graduation. When a child to an adult talk to a therapist, counselor, or psychologist one-on-one or in a group session, they get to relive their stress on what is bothering them. Once students start doing this continuously from 2 years old to graduation, then they become advocates of their mental health. They become the experts, so to speak, of themselves. This will have ramifications when they are older because they will continue the counseling sessions when they are older to relieve themselves of stress to find their psychological answers to their mental and relationship problems. They will know how to handle themselves in a calm manner in situations that are stressful to them, and eventually have empathy for other people by recognizing that other people are going through the same thing that they are going through. This is really one of the goals of psychology intervention. Other goals of this intervention is having the child to adult listen to other people, take advice, give advice, admit they were at fault, call out someone for their fault in a respectful way, stand up for themselves by not being the victim, helping others, etc. The amount on what any human can learn from this intervention is immense. The reason why this will work is because humans are social creatures, and bonding or just having a conversation releases dopamine, the happy hormone, and relinquishes cortisol, the stress hormone. Plus, all humans are 99.99 genetically the same, and all mammals, including humans, all have the same limbic system or emotional part of the brain. This will work for all Leimana plus people. What this all means is that children will not be victims of child adversity, and the mass shooters, terrorists, domestic terrorists, etc., will be a part of the us society before they get to the them society or attempt the dark side of humanity, so to speak. This is prevention. It worked because the IEP has a team of specialists, as I said before, diagnosing students on the best psychology for mental health, best education for a good career by finding the student's purpose in life, for a life lived well. Not edited. This can all be accomplished mostly before the student reaches adulthood by having the student understand themselves and the world around them. This is how powerful education can be. If education hits everyone with this accomplishment in a generation, then generations after this will feel the same accomplishment. Now, if the same accomplishment is built up in generations around the world, then this is how a type 1 civilization is built. On Earth. This is the future of mankind. This will be explained more. As before with teaching, there will be a psychological panel board talking with school therapists, As before with teaching, there will be a psychological panel board talking with school therapists on the best route for students for their mental health, like with the education panel. The therapists will use theory as well as application in individual studies for the psychological board to peer review and publish on how to help students fully with their mental health. This in turn will be reviewed by other scientists and science journals across the country to make sure the understanding is agreed upon by psychological organizations and ethic firms. Plus, all sessions will be recorded visually and used in the study to account for the student's behavior and the therapist's behavior. This all sounds great, but is there any more evidence of this working? Yes. There is a school called St. Benedict's in Newark that has a 98% graduation rate. Most of their students live in gang-related territories in which they hear gunshots on most nights. These students are victims of child adversity. The key to the success of the St. Benedict's for a lot of the students that go there is the intensive counseling group sessions and the one-on-one sessions led by a psychologist. This counseling helps with students with extreme distress and who are emotionally broken. It is all about connectiveness in these counseling sessions because they are teaching their students that they have support in whatever problems or situation that does or can occur. Actually, some of their students go from family to foster homes, then to the streets, and the school is their last sanctuary. Some of these students have nothing but themselves. The school knows that in order to be successful in life, people have to care about that person and support, and this is what they try to instill in their students. Other evidence in psychology prevention Other evidence of psychology prevention working is when psychologists use intervention techniques called Fast Track at Duke University. Fast Track is a direct intervention for children for high risk for violence. Their program starts with children at age 5. They help the kids develop skills to cope more effectively and competently when they are provoked and threatened. This program is also used with the parents into helping them to stop using abusive behavior on their children. This program took 1,000 children from random cities across the U.S. After 5 years with Fast Track, the 10-year-old children showed less hyper-defensiveness or were able to cope better in stressful situations. After 20 years, they brought back the same children from Fast Track who are now 25-year-old adults and tested them on stressors for violence. The results showed that the adults were calm and were able to self-regulate themselves. This program showed that the children who used Fast Track for 5 years old, This program showed that children who used Fast Track for 5 years produced 25-year-old adults with less psychiatric disorders, less antisocial personalities, less anxiety, less violent arrests, less time in prison, and less cost to society in the form of mental health services and incarceration. The program's authors believe that with prevention, that it is cost beneficial to society to intervene directly at a young age, like 2 years old. Besides prevention measures, resilience to child adversity can come in the form of good genetics and good parenting skills to help children to become healthier adults. Now, if a human doesn't have either one of these, then prevention can be used to help all the children so they can grow up to be healthy adults for generations to come. I have pointed out numerous times throughout this paper that prevention works best starting at 2 years ago. I'll say it again. I've pointed out numerous times throughout this paper that prevention works best starting at 2 years old to graduation. Why? Scientists say the best time to use prevention to reverse the conditions of child adversity is by 2 years old. Let me say this again. Scientists say the best time to use prevention to reverse the conditions of child diversity is by 2 years old. They say that they can reverse many child adverse effects starting at this age because this is when neurological stimulation for normal brain development occurs. With these preventative measures, they can increase IQ, help them form relationships, and help them develop their memory by increasing the size of their hippocampus. The scientists say that the door doesn't close at 2 years old, but it is the best window to start with prevention. The longer that intervention is delayed, the harder it is for children to grow up into healthy adults. This is why schools have to start at 2 years old so that students get a chance to be healthy adults and to finally live a society. This is why schools have to start at 2 years old so that students get a chance to be healthy adults and finally live in a society that has equality for all. One important note about child diversity: scientists 40 to even 50 years ago never thought about social factors like abuse, neglect, poverty, etc. that could have such large dramatic effects on the structure of the brain. This means that prevention was never even a thought to help people in the 1960s during Dr. King's time. Scientists were not there yet into thinking this way. Let me say that again. Scientists were not there yet into thinking this way. Even though Dr. King's dream was fruitful and full of life in 1963, it wouldn't have been realized back then without the science and technology humans have today. I wish preventative measures were used back then with the science and technology of today, because my generation would have grown up in an American dream without racism, and Leimana Plus would be the dominant inclusionary force for society today. This is why Dr. King's dream has stayed relevant all these years later, because it encompasses what the American dream is all about. Now, with prevention and the use of science and technology of today, this means that tomorrow's children, Generation Delta, will beseech their newly found freedom of a non-hate civilization and finally live the American dream Dr. King bestowed upon America back in 1963. Now, what do racist mass shooters and the them society all have in common besides child diversity? They do not have empathy for the us society of Leimana Plus. Empathy is the emotion of putting yourself in another person's shoes. It is the key emotion in getting rid of racism and getting rid of the them society. Plus, it will make Dr. King's dream come true and have the them society converge into the us society of Leimana Plus. How do you accomplish this? Advances in neuroscience this is good. Actually, the 2 years old was probably like the keystone, but this is the technology that helps get them there. How do you accomplish this? Advances in neuroscience has shown that brain activity could be identified and analyzed by basically having human brains and thoughts read on a type of MRI scanner called the FMRI, or functional MRI. Scientists are saying that this technology has made it possible for the first time to see the physical makeup of human thoughts. Scientists can now identify in the brain abstract ideas like gossip, forgiveness, and spirituality. Even in different languages, the brain patterns are the same for each abstract idea, or in this case, abstract thought. Scientists can also read each emotion given off by humans as well. Each emotion is the same in every human's head. This means the computer can read the feelings of all the humans and every mammal on the planet. This is because all mammals, including humans, have the same limbic system or emotional center of the brain. Besides humans, the computer can read the feelings of every mammal on Earth, including dogs, cats, horses, pigs, cows, sheep, lions, tigers, bears, elephants, dolphins, panthers, wolves, whales, seals, buffaloes, cheetahs, giraffes, etc. This technology also tells which human has autism or not with 97% accuracy. This technology can also read people having suicide thoughts and wanting to commit suicide. The scientists' goal with this technology is to create a dictionary of brain activation. This will be a key to what all the different thoughts look like inside the human's mind. In the future, scientists will one day read human thoughts precisely. The worst case scenario for this technology is that it will be used to invade people's thoughts, but scientists believe it is America's social obligation that this scenario never happens. Another technology that can help is artificial intelligence. As said before, an fMRI machine can read a person's emotional center of the brain. Now, scientists can stick a person into an fMRI electrode-free, and the artificial intelligence language models can interpret that brain information by reading people's private thoughts. In other words, the scan and the AI are mind reading a person's private thoughts. Scientists can translate a person's brain activity or read different blood flow changes within the brain into a continuous stream of text. This text corresponds to what researchers can determine what people are thinking. The scientists were so amazed by the precision of the mind-reading experiment with the AI and the fMRI that they decided to test their mind-reading experiment on the AI and a portable scanning system called a functional near-infrared spectroscopy. By avoiding a bulky device like the fMRI, this portable scanning device could be used in a person's everyday life by tracking a person's brain health with everyday focus and mind wandering. The scientists found out that they could get the same level of precision with the AI and the portable brain scanner as they did with the AI and the bulky fMRI. In other words, everyday mind reading may be possible by using devices that humans might have in their everyday lives. In the coming future, companies are developing their own neural technology into everyday devices like rings and watches. The rings and watches of today track a person's heart rate with sleep activity, and they want to do the same with mind reading. The bad part about this technology is that this is an invasive technology into a person's brain, and other people, the bad part about this technology is that this is an invasive technology into a person's brain, and other people, police, companies, or governments could listen to a person's thoughts without the person's consent or knowledge. Plus other people, police companies, or governments could download the mind-reading data being stored from everyday devices being worn by individuals like rings and watches to be used against them in some way. There will be new laws and ethics that needs to be developed on the rights to mental privacy and the rights to freedom of thought for humans to feel comfortable about this technology. The benefits to this technology can enable people who are currently paralyzed or completely physically impaired, like with Lou Gehrig's disease or ALS, get a brand new lease on communicating. In teaching, a teacher could read a child's mind to help them with a frustration that they couldn't communicate on, like a difficult math problem. In preventative psychology, a counselor could read a child's mind if they weren't able to express a traumatic event in their life. In this way, a counselor could help the student right away in order for them to heal in a healthy manner. This technology could be used to help a child achieve empathy if they are having difficulty with the Leimana Plus population. This technology, as with the fMRI, by reading emotions, can help students in many different circumstances with prevention. As with any technology used on a student, it will be reported in the student's IEP and then in an individual study on recommended use to help in a situational problem. It will be published in a science journal, peer-reviewed, duplicated, and ethically evaluated so that no child will be taken advantage of. This technology is really powerful at reading people's thoughts, and this is why so many precautions are taken, as mentioned above, so that the children are safe to learn. Now imagine all the students in America having access to these technologies at schools. Teachers can test their students in real time if they have empathy toward people or anyone for that fact. Teachers could teach empathy classes from 2 years old to graduation and use the FMRI, AI, or portable brain scanner to measure if it is working. Now, if all the humans of one generation are empathetic toward each other because of the FMRI, AI, or portable brain scanner, then Dr. King's dream literally comes true, with Leimana Plus being the Society of America. Plus, this technology can prevent suicide thoughts and people wanting to make... Plus, this technology can prevent suicide thoughts and people wanting to commit suicide. This can help soldiers coming back from war that have suicide thoughts. This technology can identify these soldiers and help them with the recovery. It can help autistic students being identified so they can get the resources they need at a young age to learn better. The best part is that terrorists, domestic terrorists, mass shooters, rapists, child molesters, etc. are prevented from developing. This means humans can control with almost certainty the nature versus nurture. God. This means humans can control with almost certainty the nature versus nurture debate. This technology will control nature to a degree in that the dark side of humanity that manifests because of child adversity will never show its darker half again, for the most part. This, in my opinion, is the true essence of scientific achievement and how we, as adults, can finally develop a type 1 civilization. This will be explained more. Here's another way to help with psychology prevention. One of the most legendary ideas in the history of psychology is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This idea was conducted in an academic journal in 1943, and it has become a mainstay of psychological analysis for business presentations and TED Talks. Abraham Maslow, a psychologist, came up with this idea because he was looking for the meaning of life. The first part are psychological needs that every human needs to learn for basic survival, and they are food, water, warmth, and rest. Schools can teach this part in classes. In this case, students can learn about eating the right amount of food and water from My Plate from the USDA. They can learn how to get the right amount of sleep, like 7 to 9 hours, from the Sleep Foundation. The last thing is warmth. This class can help students find public housing to start off. During their internship. After that, they will learn to build their credit and capital in an investment portfolio to apply for a house loan in order to purchase a house. This will be touched on later. The next part of Maslow's hierarchy is safety needs. This can be done with studies and then published, peer-reviewed, and duplicated to see how safe children are in schools from the individual level to the local, state, and federal levels. This will give parents or guardians a peace of mind about their loved ones. Plus, students will be videotaped at the school with video cameras so parents with a password can check in on their child to see how they are doing throughout the day, if necessary. The last thing is that children will learn self-defense classes in order to defend themselves. This will give kids a peace of mind about their own safety and make them an advocate for their individual safety by learning with confidence that they can handle their own business with ease. Following this part is belongingness. and love needs. As I mentioned before, humans are social creatures and need social connections to make ourselves happy so that we can have the ability to live into our hundreds with a purpose in life. The class, as I mentioned before, will be about classes on sex, how to make friends, and how to find and keep healthy relationships. Leimana Plus is a big spectrum with 18 categories of different people. This means that every class of Leimana Plus has to incorporate this. For example, it could cover basic heterosexual healthy friendships and healthy intimate relationships to more complex friends and intimate relationships, such as non-binary, transgender, For example, it could cover basic heterosexual healthy relationships to healthy intimate relationships to more complex friends and intimate relationships, such as a non-binary, transgender man who is a little person that comes from a multicultural background of Indian American, African American, European American, and Native American with a religious background of Jewish, Hindu, and Buddhism. From this profile, this person wants an asexual relationship with a non-binary transgender woman who is considered a person over 7 feet tall that comes from a multicultural background of Asian American, Latinx, and Middle Eastern American, and with a religious background in Christian, Islam, Wiccan, and atheism. This is why individual education is so important in these situations. These complex relationships will need understanding of each person's choices, backgrounds, and rules on how to make it a healthy relationship without offending one another. It's really complex. Next is esteem needs. This is more on the lines of relationships talked about before and the environments and individual needs to be whole. With relationships, rules are established to understand what each individual needs, from a friendship to an intimate relationship. For example, if a person in the relationship is needy and wants to see their partner every day, but the other person would like to see their partner once a week, then a compromise could be done so that they could see each other twice a week. This is where both parties get their needs met by one another without overwhelming the other. This class, again, is how humans have a healthy relationship by communicating their needs and wants so that both parties can be satisfied. It is like negotiating a contract, but on a more intimate level. With this same format, the environmental needs are also negotiated the same. For example, some people need a quiet, Some people need it quiet when they sleep, while others need it noisy with the television on. This again can be compromised with one person wearing a mask over their eyes to block the light from the television, and with the other wearing headphones to listen to the television without waking the other person. This is a form of empathy in which both parties win in the end by understanding what each other's needs are and working with each other to meet them. The last form is self-actualization. This is the section on the individual's full potential. This was covered before. This is individual education and having the individual pick what type of career they would like to pursue in life. Some students will like to have a trade skill instead of a college career so they can become electricians, plumbers, and welders. The other half wants to engage in a mystery by solving something from nature in the form of a science subject, like physics, chemistry, and biology. Sometimes these jobs can be unfulfilling, and if this is the case, then change needs to happen. If a person does change their mind on a career choice, then they should go back to school at any age and get the training they need to fulfill their dream and whatever that is. In the end, their job will be work, but not feel like it. This is at the top of the self-fulfillment need. Psychological intervention is a tool that helps students understand themselves enough to be advocates of their own psychological understanding. Psychology intervention will prevent an us-them thinker from ever manifesting themselves with an fMRI or MRI measuring the limbic system and hippocampus in humans. Maslow's hierarchy, group sessions, and individual sessions with a counselor. Let me say that again. Psychology intervention will prevent an us-them thinker from ever manifesting themselves with an fMRI and MRI measuring the limbic system and hippocampus in humans. Maslow's hierarchy, group sessions, and individual sessions with a counselor. Okay. Sorry, my brain's not working. These are tools that can help a student with their own These tools can help a student with their own individual process in finding their purpose in life without the never-ending burden of a psychological ailment or child adversity getting in the way. With prevention, they can deal with it better when they are younger before they get to adulthood. In this way, they can focus on a job and happiness as an adult with their advocacy on their mental health and be a part of Dr. King's dream with Leimana Plus within the model of prevention, equity, and equality. The one that I have to throw in is what Superman said in Man of Steel. Now every human on Earth can be a force for good. So cool. Man of Steel. Ichni Sanchi Go. Kuju. Konnichiwa. Laloon, oui, oui. Hola, buenos dias. Adios. We all win together. Good night.